One ship. Many alien women. I didn't expect what happened next. The abandoned vessel. The ice caves of Epsilon 9 gleamed with eerie blue light as Thorne Mercer navigated his salvage pod between crystalline stalactites. 6 months alone in the outer rim had left his beard unkempt and his patience thin. The mining operation had failed spectacularly, leaving him with nothing but debt and a desperate need for something valuable. Life support at 60%. His ship's AI announced dispassionately, "Recommend return to main vessel within 3 hours." Thorne grunted, adjusting the scanner. "Just a little deeper, Mira. Something's giving off readings I've never seen before." The scanner's soft ping accelerated as he maneuvered around a massive ice formation. What he saw next made him forget to breathe. A ship, unlike any he'd encountered, half buried in the translucent ice. Its hull resembled flowing liquid metal frozen in time, with organic curves that seemed to pulse with faint violet light. "Mira, are you seeing this?" he whispered. "Unknown vessel detected. No matching records in database. Caution advised." After securing his pod, Thorne approached the alien craft, his breath fogging inside his helmet. The surface felt warm beneath his gloved hand. Impossible given the sub-zero temperatures. When he pressed his palm against what appeared to be an entry point, the material rippled like water and parted silently. Inside, gravity and atmosphere normalized instantly. Thorne cautiously removed his helmet, inhaling air that smelled of something sweet and unfamiliar. The corridors curved organically, lined with what resembled bioluminescent veins that brightened as he passed. "Hello?" His voice echoed unanswered through the ship. In what seemed to be the central chamber, a sight froze him mid-step. A woman floated in a column of shimmering light, suspended as if in peaceful sleep. Her skin was a soft purple hue that caught the ambient light, making her appear to glow from within. Her features were striking, almost human yet with subtle differences that marked her as something other. Most notable were the delicate luminescent patterns that traced her exposed skin like living tattoos. Thorne circled the stasis field cautiously. "Mira, scan for life signs." Before his AI could respond, the woman's eyes opened, entirely violet with no visible pupils, and locked directly onto his. The stasis field dissolved and she fell forward. Thorne lunged, catching her before she hit the floor. She felt lighter than she should, given her height. "Who are you?" Her voice resonated strangely, as if multiple tones spoke at once. "Name's Thorne. I found your ship buried in ice. Are you alone here?" A flash of something, pain, fear, crossed her features. "I am Nyara, and no, not alone. Never alone on the Luminara." Her fingers traced the console beside them, and the ship hummed in response, more lights awakening throughout the chamber. "Where's the rest of your crew?" Thorne helped her stand, noticing how she seemed to regain strength with each passing moment. Sleeping, waiting. Her eyes scanned the room before returning to his face. "The Luminara chose you. It let you enter." "Chose me? Look, I'm just a salvager who—" A tremor ran through the ship, cutting him off. Panels that had been dormant flared to life, displaying star charts and flowing script he couldn't comprehend. Nyara's expression shifted to wonder. "The others awaken," she whispered. "The ship feels your presence, your emotions. It has been so long." Thorne stepped back, suddenly uneasy. "What exactly is this ship? And what are you?" Nyara moved toward him with fluid grace that seemed almost weightless. "I am Lumidian, the last of my kind. And this," she gestured to the living walls around them, "is not merely a vessel. It is our sanctuary, our memory, our last hope." She reached for his hand, her touch sending an unexpected warmth up his arm. "And now perhaps our salvation." The ship trembled again, and distant chambers illuminated down the corridor. Nyara's luminescent patterns brightened in response. "They are coming," she said, her voice filled with an emotion Thorne couldn't name, "and nothing will be the same." Reflections and whispers. The corridors of the Luminara pulsed with renewed energy as Thorne followed Nyara deeper into the vessel. The ship responded to her presence, pathways illuminating and doorways dissolving as they approached. Nyara moved with fluid grace, her purple skin casting soft violet reflections against the crystalline walls. "The Luminara is alive," she explained, noticing his wonder. "Not as you understand life, but conscious nonetheless. It responds to emotions, to connections between beings. So it's some kind of empathic technology?" Thorne kept one hand near his blaster, years of solitary survival having taught him caution. Nyara's laugh was melodic. "Technology implies creation. The Luminara grew as we did from the energies of our homeworld. Her expression darkened. Before the cataclysm. They entered a vast chamber where the ceiling opened to reveal the ice cave above, stars visible through the crystalline formations. At the center stood two stasis pods similar to the one that had held Nyara. As they approached, the pods began to shimmer and dissolve. "My sisters," Nyara whispered. The first figure that emerged moved like lightning. Before Thorn could react, he found himself pinned against a wall, a blade of energy humming inches from his throat. His attacker was another Lumidian woman with fiercer features than Nyara's, her purple skin a shade darker, marked with angular patterns that pulsed with intensity. "Vela, stop," Nyara commanded. "He is not a threat." The second figure stepped forward with deliberate calm. "The ship admitted him, Vela. It would not have done so if he carried malice." This Lumidian was taller than the others, her movements graceful yet precise, her violet eyes seeming to see through Thorn rather than merely at him. Humans cannot be trusted. "Kira," Vela hissed, her blade still poised. "They take, they destroy, they leave nothing." Thorn remained perfectly still. "I'm just a salvager. Found your ship by accident. I can leave if—" "No," Kira interrupted, placing a hand on Vela's arm. "The Luminara awakened for a reason. It sensed something in you, human." Vela reluctantly lowered her weapon, which dissolved into particles of light that reabsorbed into her skin. "If the ship wants him here, I will tolerate it. Nothing more." As the tension eased, Thorn noticed how the ship's interior had changed, becoming brighter, more vibrant in the presence of all three Lumidians. Their patterns complemented each other, creating resonances that made the walls sing with subtle harmonies. "How long were you in stasis?" he asked. The three exchanged glances before Kira answered. "By your measurement, perhaps 3 centuries. We fled when our world began to die, carrying what remained of our civilization within this vessel. The Luminara preserved us," Nyara added, "but it needed rest, needed to heal. It buried itself here waiting." "Waiting for what?" Thorn asked. Vela approached, studying him with reluctant curiosity. "For someone who could help restore its energy. The Luminara feeds on emotional connections, on bonds between sentient beings. We three are connected, but our energy alone was not enough to sustain it forever. So I'm—" "What, a battery?" Nyara's hand touched his arm, sending an unexpected warmth through him. "A catalyst. Your emotions are different from ours, powerful, raw." Her eyes met his. "When you found me, the ship tasted your loneliness, your determination. It resonated." Kira moved to a control panel that responded to her touch with flowing patterns. "The ship's systems are revitalizing, but slowly. We need time." "Time we may not have," Vela said sharply. "Others will have detected our awakening. Scavengers, worse." As if confirming her fears, a distant alarm sounded. Kira's hands danced across the console. "A ship approaches. Military grade. Probably the Hegemony Patrol," Thorn muttered. "They monitor these sectors for illegal salvage." Vela's eyes narrowed. "You led them here." "Not intentionally," he protested. "But they track all ship movements in this system." Nyara placed herself between them. "It doesn't matter now. The Luminara is still too weak to move or cloak itself." Thorn felt the weight of their gazes. "I have an idea," he said reluctantly. "My salvage pod has countermeasures. I can create a distraction, lead them away while you three finish waking this ship. You would risk yourself for us?" Kira's voice held surprise. Thorn couldn't explain the impulse himself. "Let's just say I'm not fond of authorities. Besides," he added with a half-smile, "I'm curious to see what this ship of yours can really do." As Nyara guided him back toward the airlock, her hand found his again. This time the warmth flowed both ways, and for a moment, Thorn felt something he couldn't name, a connection that transcended words, as if her emotions brushed against his consciousness. "We will await your return," she said softly. Thorn nodded, surprised by how much he wanted to come back. After years of drifting alone between asteroid fields and forgotten moons, the pull he felt toward this strange vessel and its inhabitants was something entirely new and terrifyingly welcome. The binding ritual. The distraction had worked better than Thorn anticipated. After leading the Hegemony Patrol on a chase through the ice caverns, he'd triggered an avalanche that buried their landing signals. It wouldn't hold them forever, but it bought precious time. When he returned to the Luminara, the ship had transformed. What had been dormant systems now thrummed with energy. The crystalline corridors pulsed with rhythmic light, and the air itself seemed charged with possibility. Kira met him at the entrance, her tall form silhouetted against the glow. "You succeeded," she stated, her voice betraying subtle relief. "For now." Thorn removed his helmet, noticing how the ship adjusted its atmosphere perfectly to his comfort. "They'll return with reinforcements. We should consider moving this vessel somewhere safer." "The Luminara is preparing," she replied, guiding him through passages that seemed to have rearranged themselves in his absence. "But first, there is something we must do." They entered the central chamber where Niara and Vela stood beside a pool of luminescent liquid that hadn't been there before. The fluid moved with purpose, forming patterns that matched the markings on the Lumidian's skin. "What's this?" Thorn asked, approaching cautiously. Niara stepped forward. "A ritual of gratitude and protection. You risked yourself for strangers for us. Among Lumidians, such actions create bonds that must be acknowledged." Vela, her earlier hostility notably diminished, nodded. "The ritual will connect you temporarily to the ship's consciousness. It will shield you from harm when we must flee. And," Kira added, "it will allow us to find you should we become separated." Thorn hesitated. "What exactly does connect mean?" "A sharing of essence," Niara explained. "Thoughts, emotions, memories, only those you willingly offer." Her violet eyes held his. "We would never take what is not freely given." The liquid in the pool shifted, reaching tendrils upward as if beckoning. Against his better judgment, Thorn found himself nodding. "What do I need to do?" The ritual began with the 3 Lumidians forming a circle around the pool. They invited Thorn to join them, their hands extended. As their fingers intertwined, the patterns on their skin brightened, and Thorn felt a gentle warmth where their skin touched his. "Open your mind," Kira instructed. "Feel, don't think." Thorn closed his eyes, attempting to quiet the caution that had kept him alive all these years. Gradually, he became aware of presences brushing against his consciousness. 3 distinct signatures, each as unique as a voice. Nyara's presence felt like sunset warmth, compassionate and curious. Vela's was intense protective fire tempered with unexpected vulnerability. Kira's mind touched his with calm depths that concealed ancient wisdom. The liquid from the pool rose around them, not wetting but enveloping them in a cocoon of light. Through this medium, impressions flowed between them, fragments of memories, emotions, sensations. Thorn glimpsed the Lumidian homeworld through their eyes, vast cities of crystal and light, technologies that blended seamlessly with nature, a civilization built on harmony rather than dominance. In turn, he felt them experiencing his memories, the harsh mining colonies of his youth, years of solitary travel among the stars, the simple joys of asteroid sunrises and zero-gravity rain. He sensed their surprise at the intensity of his emotions, the depth of his loneliness, the fierce independence that had both sustained and isolated him. "Your species feels so strongly," Nyara's voice whispered in his mind. "Too strongly," came Vela's thought, though without the judgment her words might have carried. "Differently," Kira corrected, "neither better nor worse, simply complementary." As the ritual intensified, the boundaries between them blurred. Thorn experienced a moment of panic at the intimacy of it, the vulnerability of being truly seen. Just as he might have pulled away, Nyara's consciousness enveloped his, radiating reassurance and acceptance. "Trust," her thought voice murmured, "as we trust you." The connection deepened. Thorn felt something unlock within him, a capacity for connection he'd forgotten existed. The sensation was overwhelming, a closeness beyond physical touch, more intimate than any human relationship he'd known. When the ritual finally ended and the luminescent fluid receded, Thorn staggered slightly. Nyara steadied him, her hand on his arm transmitting echoes of the connection they'd shared. "It is done," Kira announced. "The bond is formed." Vela approached, studying him with new eyes. "You are stronger than I judged, human. Your mind did not break." Thorn took a deep breath, adjusting to the lingering sensation of their presences in his mind. Faint now, but unmistakably there. "I feel different." "The Luminara recognizes you now," Niara explained. "You are part of its ecosystem as we are." Before Thorn could respond, a violent tremor shook the ship. Kira rushed to a control panel that materialized at her approach. The hegemony has returned, she reported grimly, with a destroyer-class vessel. They're preparing to excavate. They must have scanned the Luminara's energy signature, Vela growled. They know it's valuable. Niara's eyes met Thorne's, and he felt a whisper of her concern through their new connection. What now, Thorne Mercer? Despite the danger, Thorne felt strangely calm, centered in a way he hadn't experienced before. Now, he said, we show them what this ship can really do. Heart of the Luminara. The Luminara rose from the ice caves of Epsilon 9 with unexpected grace for a vessel its size. The crystal walls of the cavern shattered outward as the ship ascended, its hull shifting and flowing like liquid metal caught in the starlight. From the command center, Thorne watched in awe as the three Lumidians guided the vessel not through conventional controls, but through synchronized movements that resembled a dance. Their patterns glowed in unison, information flowing between them and the ship in ways his human mind struggled to comprehend. The hegemony destroyer is locking weapons, he warned, reading the scanner he'd integrated with the ship's systems. Vela's hands carved patterns in the air. Let them try. When the first energy torpedoes struck the Luminara, Thorne braced for impact, but instead of damage, the ship seemed to absorb the attack, its outer hull rippling with absorbed energy. The ship feeds on many forms of energy, Kira explained, noting his surprise, though emotional energy is what truly sustains it. They accelerated away from Epsilon 9, the stars blurring around them. The hegemony vessel fell behind, unable to match their speed. Soon they entered a nebula cloud where sensor tracking would be impossible. As the immediate danger passed, Niara approached Thorne. You should rest. The ritual has connected you to the Luminara more deeply than we anticipated. Your body needs time to adjust. She led him to a chamber that seemed to form itself from the surrounding walls as they approached. Inside, a bed-like structure molded from the same crystalline material as the rest of the ship awaited. I've never seen technology like this, Thorne marveled, running his hand along a wall that felt somehow both solid and fluid. It's like the ship is alive, Niara finished. It grows, adapts, learns. The Luminara was the pinnacle of our civilization's achievement, a vessel that could preserve not just our bodies, but our culture, our essence. Your last hope, Thorne recalled her earlier words. Niara nodded, her violet eyes reflecting the ambient light. Our world was dying, resources depleted by centuries of advancement without wisdom. The Luminara was designed to find a new home, somewhere we could begin again, but something went wrong. The ship's core, what you might call its heart, began to fade. She sat beside him, close enough that he could feel the warmth radiating from her purple skin. We entered stasis, hoping to preserve energy until we found a solution. Through their newfound connection, Thorne sensed her unspoken thoughts, the fear that there might be no solution, that the last of her species would drift forever, suspended between life and oblivion. And now, he asked, now something has changed. Her fingers intertwined with his, and he felt a surge of energy between them. Your presence? Your emotional resonance, it's different from ours. Complementary. The ship responds to it in ways we didn't expect. Thorne felt a flutter of something in his chest, an emotion he couldn't name, or perhaps was afraid to. I'm just a salvager, Niara, a loner who drifts from job to job. I'm not anyone's savior. Her smile held a wisdom that transcended species. Perhaps that is precisely why the Luminara chose you. Those who seek greatness rarely find it. Those who run from connection often need it most. A soft chime interrupted them. Kira's voice seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. Niara, we've discovered something. Bring Thorne to the core chamber. The core of the Luminara pulsed like a cosmic heartbeat, a sphere of energy suspended within nested rings of the same crystalline material as the hull. Around it, Kira and Vela worked in tandem, their patterns glowing intensely as they manipulated fields of light. The ship's heart was fading, Kira explained as they entered, but now it strengthens. Look, within the core, Thorne saw something remarkable. Tendrils of energy that matched the color and pattern of his own emotional signature as he'd glimpsed it during the ritual. They intertwined with the Lumidian's patterns, creating a complex, beautiful weave. I don't understand, he said. Vela, her earlier hostility now replaced by reluctant respect, approached. Our species evolved in symbiosis with the energies of our world. The Luminara was designed to continue this symbiosis, but in isolation, entropy set in. Without new emotional patterns to integrate, the core began to fade. Your human emotions, their intensity, their complexity, provide a new template, Kira continued. A catalyst for renewal. The implications settled over Thorn like a weight. So you need me to stay, to keep the ship alive. Not just alive, Nyara said softly, to help it grow. To help us find a new home, Thorn turned away, overwhelmed. Through their connection, he knew the Lumidians could sense his turmoil, the part of him that longed to belong, to matter, warring with the fear of being needed, of being responsible for the survival of others. I've spent my life alone for a reason, he said finally. Everyone I've ever cared about has left or been taken from me. That's why I chose this life. No attachments, no responsibilities, no one to disappoint or be disappointed by. And has this solitude brought you peace? Kira asked, her ancient eyes seeing through his defenses. Before he could answer, the ship trembled. Warning signals flashed through the crystal walls. The hegemony found us, Vela hissed. They must have tracked our energy signature through the nebula. Kira's hands moved across a console. They've brought reinforcements. 3 destroyers. We cannot outrun them all. Thorn felt their fear. Not for themselves, but for their vessel, the last remnant of their civilization. In that moment, his decision clarified. I know a place, he said. A system in the outer rim with unusual magnetic properties. It could mask the Luminara's signature long enough for the core to strengthen fully. Hope flickered between them, transmitted through their shared connection. Nyara's hand found his, her touch electric. Guide us, she whispered. As Thorn integrated his knowledge with the ship's navigation systems, he felt something shift within him. A wall crumbling, a door opening. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to feel the possibility of belonging somewhere, with someone. With 3 someones, to be precise. The Luminara responded to his thoughts, charting a course through stars he'd wandered alone for too long. Beyond the stars, the magnetic storms of the Cerulean Veil rippled across the viewscreen in waves of cobalt and indigo. For 3 weeks, the Luminara had hidden within this stellar phenomenon, repairing and regenerating while the hegemony patrols searched fruitlessly in nearby systems. During this time, Thorn had integrated himself further into the ship's ecosystem. He learned the language of its crystals, the meaning behind the pulsing lights, the way it responded not just to commands but to emotions and intentions. And he had grown closer to the 3 Lumidians, each relationship unique in its nature. With Kira, he shared knowledge, the star charts he'd accumulated during years of solitary exploration, the hidden routes and forgotten outposts known only to those who lived on civilization's edge. In return, she taught him the history of her people, their philosophy of symbiotic existence, their understanding of consciousness as an energy that transcended physical form. With Vela, he found an unexpected kinship in their shared protectiveness. They spent hours upgrading the Luminara's defenses, her fierce dedication to her sisters mirroring his growing determination to safeguard this floating sanctuary. Their initial antagonism had transformed into a wary respect, then genuine camaraderie. But it was with Nyara that the most profound connection formed. In quiet moments, they explored the bond created by the ritual, discovering how their minds could touch across distances, how emotions could flow between them like light between stars. What began as curiosity evolved into something deeper, an intimacy that transcended physical attraction, though that element undeniably existed as well. On this particular cycle, Thorn found Nyara in the ship's arboretum, a chamber where plants from her homeworld grew in carefully maintained environments. She knelt beside a flower that resembled an earth orchid, but glowed with bioluminescence. It's called an astral bloom, she said as he approached. On our world, they grew only at the highest elevations, where the air was thin and the stars seemed close enough to touch. Thorn sat beside her, watching how the flower responded to her proximity, its glow intensifying. It's beautiful. And you're troubled, she replied, sensing his mood through their connection. He nodded. The core is almost fully restored. Soon you'll be able to continue your journey, find that new home you've been searching for. Our journey, she corrected gently. Our home. Thorn met her violet eyes. Is it? I've been useful to you, I understand that. The ship needed my emotional patterns to regenerate. But now Now you believe we no longer need you? Her expression softened with understanding. And so you prepare to leave, as you always have. Before he could respond, an alarm echoed through the chamber. They rushed to the command center where Kira and Vela were already assessing the situation. A quantum disruption, Kira explained, her hands moving through holographic displays. It's affecting the core's stability. On the central monitor, the heart of the Luminara flickered erratically, the intricate pattern of energies beginning to unravel. What's happening? Thorn demanded. Vela's expression was grim. The magnetic storms, they're more volatile than we realized. They're interfering with the symbiotic matrix. In simpler terms, Kira added, the core is losing cohesion. If it collapses completely, the ship dies, Nyara finished. And with it, everything that remains of our world. Thorn studied the readings, drawing on knowledge absorbed over weeks of integration with the ship's systems. The disruption is cascading through the emotional patterns, yours and mine, intertwined in the core. They're being pulled apart. A moment of silence fell as the implications became clear. There's a way, Thorn said finally. The ritual created a bond between us. If we strengthen that bond, deepen the integration of our emotional patterns, we might stabilize the core. A second ritual, Kira mused. More profound than the first. It would require complete openness, complete vulnerability. Complete trust, Vela added, her eyes finding Thorn's. Nyara stepped forward. It would change you, Thorn. Change us all. The boundaries between our consciousnesses would become permeable, not erased, but forever altered. Thorn felt the weight of the decision. The lifetime of walls he'd built around himself. The fear of loss that had driven him to the stars alone. Yet alongside that fear existed something new. The first tendrils of belonging, of connection, of home. I thought I chose solitude, he said quietly. But maybe I was just waiting. For this ship, for this moment. His eyes moved between the three Lumidians. For you. The second ritual took place in the core chamber itself, the heart of the Luminara pulsing around them as they formed a circle. This time the luminescent fluid rose from within them, their patterns glowing with increasing intensity as the boundaries between individual and collective began to blur. Thorn opened himself fully, offering not just selected memories but his entire being, hopes, fears, regrets, dreams. In return, he felt the Lumidians doing the same, their minds flowing into his, their essences becoming part of his own. Through Kira's consciousness, he experienced the weight of centuries, the burden of preserving an entire culture's wisdom. Through Vela, he felt the fierce protectiveness that masked deep vulnerability, the willingness to sacrifice everything for those she loved. And through Nyara, he discovered a capacity for hope that had survived the death of a world, a belief in possibility that never dimmed. As their minds intertwined ever more deeply, something remarkable happened within the core. The fragmented patterns reintegrated, strengthened, evolved into something new, a hybrid matrix of human intensity and Lumidian harmony. When the ritual concluded, the four remained connected in ways that transcended physical proximity. They could sense each other's thoughts, feel each other's emotions, exist simultaneously as individuals and as parts of a greater whole. The core is stabilized, Kira announced, though they all knew it already, could feel the renewed strength of the Luminara pulsing through them like a shared heartbeat. More than stabilized, Vela added. It's evolved. Thorn felt Nyara's consciousness brush against his, a touch more intimate than any physical contact. Now what? He asked, though he could sense the answer forming in their shared awareness. Now we continue our journey, Nyara said aloud, her voice harmonizing with the thoughts already flowing between them, not as separate beings seeking a home, but as a new kind of entity, human and Lumidian, emotion and harmony, individual and collective. Through the view screen, the cerulean veil parted before them, revealing stars untouched by the hegemony, worlds unexplored by either of their species. The Luminara moved forward, guided by their unified consciousness, its crystalline hull gleaming with new patterns that reflected their intertwined destinies. Thorn felt the last of his walls dissolving, replaced by something stronger, a connection that spanned species and space, a belonging that transcended physical boundaries. He had spent his life searching the stars, only to discover that his true journey was just beginning. As the ship accelerated toward the unknown, the four minds shared a single thought. Whatever lay beyond the stars, they would face it together. Retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses. Sonnet 3.7